Ciao a tutti! Hello everyone! Welcome to Fly High, where you're gonna be flying high language learning with me, Francesca.
And James.
And in this lesson we'll be looking at the polite form in Italian, la forma di cortesia, la forma del lei. We see all the times we use it, and also we'll be looking at some interesting facts and curiosities from history and see how it all came about. So let's explore it together.
So Fran, when do you use the polite form and not? So when do you use the tu and the lei?
Okay, so basically we use the tu, the informal, so tu is the informal you, with people we know well, with friends, with family. We can use it with people at work as well when they're not like exactly like superiors, like a boss or so. So work colleagues is all fine, and then we use it among young people. So if we are in a group of young people, or even if we as adults we speak with children, we obviously gonna be using, we'll be speaking with them informally. And as well, if we are in a informal shop, for instance, or restaurant, or like a coffee shop, we with the servers. So we tend to use the you really. The tu, while instead we use the lei, the polite form is the lei, and we'll be seeing what it all is, but basically we use it for older people, so the elderly in general, as a form of respect really, like the you addressing them. And as well, people you don't know, if they're not your friends, if they're not your family, and it's the first time you meet these people, like you use the lei,
makes sense.
The polite form. And as well with your boss at work, with people in that are hierarchically like higher than yourself, in a way, like you, unfortunately, there's this sort of like respectful form that you have to you be using. As well, job interviews, you use the polite form. And as well, with people more in in authority, like it's a doctor, a police officer, like people in administration, at the bank as well. So all of that, a professor in university, yes. So you use the polite form as a form of respect, really. So these are the main uses. And so how it all came about. So did you notice that it's the lei? Lei is the form that we use to go with with addressing someone respectfully. So why the lei? Lei means she, right?
It's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, doesn't it mean she? So basically, this form, it was originally voi. So we used to say voi. Voi is the you in the plural. But so it all came about because you didn't want to address. So basically, you were speaking with someone in the past, right? And I'm speaking with you directly. But it was considered rude if I was using the same pronouns that technically belong to you. So that the pronouns of the you. So I had to refer to the person in the third person, as I was speaking about someone else, but actually I'm speaking with you right now. Okay?
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing.
So so it was considered rude if you addressed the person, oh wow, like all these like coming on like very directly. You came across very directly. So that was considered rude. So you had to be speaking as if you were someone else basically.
But to them.
But to them. So and also why the she came about? Why the lei? Because the polite forms, those forms of address that were used with higher ranked people, they were usually family nouns. So for instance, Your Majesty, Sua Maestà. Maestà is a feminine noun. Your Highness, Sua Altezza. Your Highness is another feminine noun. Your Excellence, Sua Eccellenza. Sua Eccellenza, they're all feminine nouns, you see. So it made more sense for the she form, lei, to be used instead. Your Grace as well, Sua Grazia. All
so again, it's to do with obviously higher ranks, lower ranks, and that kind of formalities, informalities.
Yes. And as well, if you guys are coming from different language backgrounds, so basically what do these polite forms translate as in other languages? So in French, for instance, you use the vous. So the polite form is the vous. So they still use the second person plural as in older Italian with the voi. Okay? And the same in Russian, they use the vi. So that's the, again, the polite form. In Spanish, instead, they use usted. So it's the third person. It's a third person singular. So just like pretty much in Italian.
Yeah.
And then in German, they use the Z form. So so this is all what it corresponds to. Few languages I'm familiar with, basically. But yeah, English doesn't really have it. So it comes up that it transpires basically there is a polite form only on the types of words.
Yeah, how
using,
we
really.
express ourselves, really. Some different expressions, but it's still the same. Hello, but you can say hello, sir, madame, and address them accordingly.
Yeah.
Instead of saying hi mate to a person you don't know, you don't really do that. So
yeah, just in the choice of words you use, right?
Yeah. Unless there might be something that we're not really familiar with, Old English somehow, they might have some different formalities, but to what I know, we just address them in a slightly different way.
Yeah. And that's the funny fact actually. In the times where Mussolini was in power, between 1922 and 1943, he actually banned the use of lei.
Oh, really?
And he replaced it with voi. And probably, guys, you can guess why, because the lei was considered too feminine at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all about manhood at the time, and some putting women into submission, basically. So so the lei just didn't go well with him, and so he banned it, and people were not allowed to use the lei. Possibly within closed doors, people still, family, friends, but not officially. Officially, it was actually not allowed to use the lei during that time. Yeah, and as well, so a couple of keywords here. So dare del lei. Dare del lei is the word that we use to address someone formally. So when you say, so dare del lei actually is not translatable basically in English, because there is no such thing technically. But it's if you want to say address somebody formally, then you have to say dare del lei. If you have to translate instead to address somebody informally, then you say dare del tu. Okay, because it's the obvious difference.
So, would there be like different regions that would still keep the lei or the voi or the?
Actually, yes. So basically, in the north, it's still more popular to say lei. Is the norm. In the south of Italy, however, they still tend to use the voi. Yeah, it's still retained it from the past, the voi. Yes.
Well, when Mussolini was changing, or was it way back?
No, Mussolini. No. It was way back. It just retained it really from the past. It's still quite. They consider it's even more polite, basically, to say voi compared to lei.
So there's an extra step.
So there's an extra step. Yes. So they still say they still use the voi, but obviously the lei is also used.
Yeah.
So and speaking of uses and how we form it and everything. So the formal lei is always capitalized, and the context will tell you as well whether you're speaking about you formally, or you're actually speaking about a third person
because
that
otherwise
is a
it'd be
female.
quite confusing. Really, yeah.
So for instance, you want to go maybe with an English sentence and go.
You are very kind.
Yeah, lei è molto gentile. So I'm speaking with you. I don't know you, and I'm saying, oh, lei è molto gentile. You are very kind. And you see, I say lei. I capitalize the lei. And you give me an example of instead when I'm speaking about someone else.
What about I speak with my mum and she tells me she's fine?
Ok, parlo con mia mamma e lei mi dice che sta bene. Ok? So parlo con mia mamma e lei there is a she, right? Because you're not speaking directly with, I'm speaking with you about my mom, and she tells me that she's fine. So in that case, the lei is referring to the she. It's not referring formal
and it would
conversation.
be obviously not capital at that point.
And not capitalized, yes. And lei, so lei is followed by a third person singular, as you guys will have tapped by now. So when followed by the verb, by a verb, it conjugates just like it would conjugate with lei, with she. So always third person singular. So examples here.
Well, you have coffee or tea.
Ok. Lei prende un tè o un caffè? Ok? So prende, actually you said coffee first. Caffè o tè? Prende un caffè o un tè? So lei prende un caffè o un tè? So you see that we say lei prende. Prende is the third person singular of the verb prendere, to take.
Okay.
So we have to conjugate lei according to that.
Third person.
Third person. Yeah.
And what about, do you often go to the cinema?
Yeah, va spesso al cinema? Lei? You can say lei or you can leave it out, but obviously you see the va is conjugated according to the third person. We don't say vai spesso al cinema. Vai spesso al cinema is the informal way to say you go, right? You go. But we're asking, do you often go to the cinema? But we don't know the person much, so we use the polite form and we go va spesso al cinema, and then you can also say lei if you want at the end or at the beginning. Lei va spesso al cinema. You can, as I mentioned in a different lesson about the personal subject pronouns, we don't necessarily have to use them unless we want to stress them out, really, to emphasize them. So we can leave it out. And yes, so lei, we use it, obviously it means technically she, but this is the polite form, and we use it for both men and women, so for male and female speakers. So when you go, for instance, in English,
is it for you, sir?
È per lei, signore? You see? È per lei, signore? So you go, is it for you, sir? But technically, is it for her? Okay?
Yeah.
So it's a weird one, I know. It can take a little bit of time to get used to.
And obviously, as you said, if you was in South Italy, possibly you could put boy.
Yeah, but I don't want to confuse you guys. Like, you just go with the lei.
Yeah,
okay?
that's a
lei
strict
is
rule.
the one, to use.
Okay, what about, is it for you, madame?
Yeah. È per lei, signora? Is it the same? È per lei, but then you say signora. So you know who you're speaking with. Yes, so, but it's the same, technically. È per lei? If you say è per lei, like I'm speaking with you, I don't know you. Is it for you? Per lei?
Okay,
Yeah, that's cool. And you're a guy.
Yeah. I don't really think on that, you know.
No, it's the way it is, And then as well, we can see how it changes according to the adjectives, because you know the adjectives need to be agreed in gender and number as well. So,
what about if you say, are you free tomorrow?
Yeah, are you free tomorrow? Yeah, you see, in English is are you free tomorrow? Doesn't matter if you're a male speaker, you're speaking with a male, or you're speaking with a female speaker, you're still going to be saying, are you free tomorrow? In Italian, we'll have to obviously make a difference if it's a male speaker that we speak with or a female speaker that we're speaking with. So, we go, lei è libera domani, so are you free tomorrow? If we're speaking with a female speaker. If instead I'm speaking with you and I'm saying, lei è libero domani, you see, I'm putting the O there, the end of libero, okay? Because you're a male speaker. So we will have to, so the lei is the same, the form is the same, third person singular, and we also say lei. Lei è libera domani for females, e lei è libero domani for when we're speaking with a male.
So it's an extra thing for English speakers or anyone who's learning Italian, just to think of with the, again, feminine and masculine.
No, it can take a little bit of time to get used to it, but in general, you know that a feminine noun or a feminine adjective finishes in a, and the masculine adjective finishes in o. So you know you get used to it, and saying it, And as well, there's some forms of address. So when we say Mr. and all that,
cool.
basically that's
so
nice.
what would be Mr. or Sir then?
Okay, so we got signore. So we got signore, signor. So signore with the ending in e, with an e, signore. Signore is when it's on its own, basically. When we say, for instance, yes, sir.
Okay.
Sì, signore. Sì, signore. We say signore. Signore instead is when it's followed by a name or a surname. Il signor Rossi. We say signor. We say Rossi. So il signor Rossi. You see, I don't say signore Rossi. Just doesn't sound nice. So signor, I just chopped away the e, and I just the surname. So afterwards there's a surname. So il signor. So that's a simple difference. So if you have something after that comes after signor, so a name or surname, usually you just chop the e and you just say signor. If instead it's an expression, you go like sì signore, buongiorno signore, then you have to use the full signore. Then.
Okay, so what about for woman then? So you got Mrs., Madame.
Yeah,
Miss.
yeah, in English it's a few. So
if I say, how are you, Madame?
Yeah, come sta signora? Signora. Signora is madam, yeah.
Okay.
Or Mrs., yeah, signora.
Again, you got the A.
Yes, the A tells you. Yes, yes.
Okay, and again, just a simple Miss.
Miss, yeah, no longer really used. That's a little bit as well, like condescending. Say to someone like signorina, but yeah, that was the form.
Probably do that when you want to flirt with someone, maybe.
Signorina, no.
Oh, okay.
No, to be honest, it's very old, and it's not really Miss. It's a little bit, well, even in English, like you don't really say Miss anymore, right?
But apart from when teachers call them Miss.
Miss?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, not the same in not the same in Italian. You know, you don't really address teachers like that. You just call them professor. Like,
okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we got some more examples. Like, can you go so that I can, show you a little bit the difference between informal and formal. Okay. You go with the English.
Okay. So, what's your name?
Okay. Informal is come ti chiami, as you guys know. Formally would be come si chiama. So you see that we. So if I'm asking you, I know you. I cannot know you if I ask your name, right? Right? It doesn't make much. Yeah. So if I ask you come ti chiami is informal. If instead it's come si chiama, I'm asking you formally. Okay, so you might be in a position of like authority, or you're in a job interview and they go, "What's your name? Come si chiama?"
Okay, and the next one, how are you?
How are you? Yeah, come stai? I ask you that, I know you and everything. Come stai? If I ask maybe an older person or someone, come sta? Come sta? How are you?
Okay, where do you live?
What do you live? Dove abiti? Dove abiti is the informal one, and the formal one would be dove abita. Dove abita?
Okay, and are you married?
Okay, are you married? So here you see with sposato we have to distinguish between male and female. So if I ask you, informally say sposato, and formally would be è sposato.
Okay. Yeah.
If instead I was speaking with a female speaker, informally I would say sei sposata, and formally I would say è sposata. So that's how we would do it.
Okay, so how would you switch from lei and to then?
Yeah, okay, so basically it can be a situation. It can be a situation where you are in between maybe being formal and informal.
Yeah.
Or you think the formal way is not appropriate anymore because, you can, that sort of...
trust,
Trust, exactly. Like, you just want to...
I think we feel that sometimes when you have interviews for jobs and stuff, you know when to still be a bit more etiquette, or when you can loosen yourself up, say a few words a little bit more natural. So I guess, when you're in that kind of feeling, that environment, then you can, you can change some words or you say some expressions.
Yeah. So basically what you do, so basically it's usually the person in a higher rank, to be honest, or the older person that allows you to use the tu. So to be honest, Italy compared to the English-speaking world is still quite traditional and quite formal. It's more formal overall. That's why it might sound a little bit weird to you guys, like, to hear that, like, the older person or the person in authority that gives you permission when there is no such thing in in English much.
No.
Yeah, but in any case, that would be the form that in English translates as call me John. Oh, call me John. Like, you just like stop the formalities basically.
Yeah,
and this, we say the same in Italian. So we say dammi del tu, give me the you. We say give me the you to say call me Francesca, okay? Give me the tu. Dammi del tu. Or you can say chiamami Francesca senza troppe formalità, okay? Call me Francesca without too many formalities. That's that's what we say when we switch from lei to tu. And as well, there could be situations where you don't know or where you want to ask the person actually, like you actually let's just ask and take the initiative and see if we can speak, because at times like you can be sort of confused, like what should we use? Maybe it's a formalish situation, but the person you speak with is your same age, so it feels at times more actually appropriate to use the you rather than the older the lei form. And so you can go ci diamo del tu o del lei. Are we giving each other the you or the lei? And also could be as well, possiamo darci del tu, so you're asking sort of like can we give each other the you, so basically can we use the tu?
It's quite nice really, because you could like say that when you say can I give you the tu, it means you both trust each other and you want to take the friendship or engagement a little bit more relaxed and you feel good in each other's company and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
It's actually quite nice really.
Yeah. And so I think this concludes our lesson then for today.
Okay, yeah.
I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and that it's now clearer when to use one thing, when to use you.
I definitely know when to use it now.
To use lei. Yes, so you enjoyed the little piece of history as well. That was interesting. And yes, so guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. Thanks again so much for watching. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next episode then with James. And ciao.
Ciao. Bye.